Streaming live around the world, this is Paper Cuts with Brad and Jay.
I'm the one you love. I'm Jay. Thanks so much for stopping by. Over there's Brad. It's his show.
It's his show. That's why I'm the host, and we just love Jay.
Now you know it's all natural. I mean, nothing's rehearsed, right?
No, absolutely nothing is rehearsed on this show.
God, you just suck the life out of me. It feels like
you've got a lot grayer since we started this.
I have. I know. I have.
Tyler Jones, Ross Jeffery. We're so popular we have two guests. We are live.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to a special Sunday afternoon edition. Afternoon for some of us, morning for some, the next day for others, next Wednesday for a few other people joining us too. But it is a Sunday, and it's a special edition of Paper Cuts. I'm Jay. Brad, I just see you like a couple of days ago. What did you do on your time off? Travel or what?
Travel. Yeah, we had fall break. It's this cool concept that I don't.
Well, I mean, it was like a day and a half ago. I just talked to you, right? So
it's a double dose this weekend.
It is. And just FYI, I mean, one of my kids has a friend over, so it's gonna be noisy. Laundry's going on behind me in the laundry room. The dog had a bath, so he's going to bark at the shadow for a while, and he's riled up. Perfect Paper Cuts episode.
Hey, if you need to fold the laundry or anything, that's fine.
I'll do it during the actual show. Asking you,
we can judge your method.
We're going to talk about the horror of socks and where do the missing socks.
Another portal, another dimension.
Exactly. With us, no strangers to the show, yet they agreed to come back, and they may have fever making them nuts. But Tyler Jones and Ross Jeffery both are joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much, guys, for spending your Sunday morning or evening in the future with us. Hello.
What's going on, guys?
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. This is awesome to see you all in one screen.
That's what I say all the time, but then I get called conceited for saying that. So,
and also thank you for having us, because as we said before we came on, that this is the first time either of us is going to actually talk live about these books. So thank you very much.
Nice. So the pressure's on. We appreciate that.
Pressure is on.
Yeah, on you guys or on us?
It's on us for sure.
Chad.
Well,
definitely on us.
Everyone, because Chad's here, so I guess all four of us, the pressure's on. So
right on,
Chad, you're actually here on time. Man. We appreciate it, man. We didn't have to start late because Chad got here.
Yeah, or start over. Normally. So what's been going on since we've last spoke, gentlemen? Tyler, it's been probably a year and a half with you, 2 years. Ross, it's been a couple months. Did we talk?
Yeah, we did cover.
You were just
cover reveal for
Devil's
Pocketbook. I think. Tyler, you were back on for Almost Ruth came out.
Was it that? No kidding.
I think so. Jeez. I think it was Almost Ruth.
Yeah, you're right. Because we were talking about Burn the Plans, but it hadn't yet come out yet.
What was that? About a year and a half, 2 years ago?
That would have been late 2021.
I'm horrible with time. Just
hey, Andy.
Yeah.
Nice. Got a copy of Midas.
Yeah.
So we've both been extremely busy writing all these new books. Yeah, look.
And it's shiny.
Ooh, nice.
See, I'm the cheapskate. Look at that. Beautiful. Limited edition. Limited edition.
Just draw your own picture on there.
That's the one you sell on eBay. Yeah, that's the one you sell on eBay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, it's been busy writing books, releasing books. Yeah, incredibly busy.
Yeah,
so
same.
Ross, your book comes out Tuesday, right? The 24th?
Yeah. I Died Too, but they haven't buried me yet. Comes out on Tuesday, 24th. Yeah, very, very excited about it and seeing how it lands. And I'm just really excited about this book.
And for those who don't know, who's the publisher for that?
It's Clash Books.
Yes.
So they are releasing it in paperback and ebook. And yeah, it'll be available on Tuesday.
Nice.
And Tyler with Midas, in case people don't know, who's the publisher for that one?
That's out from Earthling Publications, which is kind of a weird scenario because it's out, but it's out in a limited edition.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's approaching being sold out. So hopefully it'll find another home eventually. but it's kind of weird to be talking about a book in a sense that, you know, there's 500 copies of.
But it's
It's
part
cool.
of
It's amazing.
It's Earthling's Halloween series they do, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Every October they release a book as part of their Halloween series. Boys in the Valley was one 2 years ago, I think. Marla by Jonathan Chance. Was last year. So it's a total honor. I mean, absolute honor to have Midas be part of this. But it dawned on me after we went to publications, like, oh yeah, I'm going to be talking about this book that, could sell out in the next couple of weeks.
That'd be a good thing though if it sells out though.
Yeah,
it would be. Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it.
How many copies are there, Tyler? 500, did you say?
500 total. Yeah, and I don't think there's many left. I don't have an exact number, but Paul from Earthling said it's approaching sellout territory, which is really great.
Nice.
So grateful to everyone who's picked up a copy for sure.
So I mean that's what Earthling normally does, right? They release a special book like this, and then once it sells out from them, it goes to another publication. Is that how do you normally do things?
Yeah, okay. Typically, yeah. It depends. Yeah, but that's the goal, is to have it out in this really beautiful limited edition, and then hopefully find another publishing home that can do a wide release.
Right.
So
and Ross, you're with Clash, who doesn't just focus on like horror. They're all over the place. They have a bunch of different genres, but yet here's yours right in the middle.
Yeah, I'm also the only book they're releasing kind of like in this kind of spooky season, and that's horror. So it's
they needed someone to bring the grief. So called off.
The holiday season's coming, isn't it? So they just want people to be really depressed before then, and then pick them back up.
Nice.
So how did you all both hook up with your publishers, with Clash and with Earthling?
Tyler, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Boy, I'd been a fan of Earthling for a long time, and I had this novel that I'd had in my hands for a couple of years, and I mean the story behind it was that I'd actually written it 4 or 5 years ago. So it's an older novel that I spent a lot of time rewriting and editing, and I started querying agents, so sending agents the pitch for this book along with some the first few chapters in early 2020, which was a terrible time to be querying agents, because then of course March. Yeah. So not knowing what was going to happen, I got a little antsy, and I just emailed Paul Miller and was like, hey man, I'm just a huge fan of your work, and I have no clue how this works, but I was curious if you'd be interested in checking this out. And he was so gracious and patient and said, yeah, I'm interested. So I sent him the manuscript, and the rest is history. He invited me to be part of the Halloween series, which was awesome. And it's been an absolute privilege to work with him. He's meticulous in how he approaches books. So there's a lot of love, a lot of attention to detail in what he does. And, Josh Mallerman was gracious enough to write an introduction for the book, which is just phenomenal. So that's how I got connected with Paul. And it's really cool working with him, because he puts all this effort into creating this a version of the book that will never exist again. So there's there's something about limited editions that are really cool in that regard. Like once the 500 are gone, it will never be available like that, with that cover, with that introduction, with the artwork that's in it that Vincent Chong did. So it's really, really special. Yeah. And just again, an absolute honor to work with Earthling. I mean, they've published.
I love the cover too, by the way. So
yeah,
I know the website has like the full wrap. This was just an advanced copy, but like the website I saw earlier today, I was looking at it. It's got the full picture for the wrap of it.
Yeah. And Vincent Chong, like working with him was one of my bucket list things. I mean, he's been a favorite artist of mine for a long time. And when Paul and I were discussing cover artists, I brought up Vincent. He was like, yeah, let's see if we can get him.
That's one thing I've always noticed about Earthlings, like their special editions. they go all out for the artwork too, for the cover and all. So that's
Yeah.
something, you know, that's helps it be special limited edition and makes you want to
Yep.
get it because it's never going to look like that again. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I really
And what's
like
really
your
cool-
signature sheet as well, like with the jade app.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. Nice pop of color. And that's a cool thing about a limited edition presses is they have the freedom to do artwork that like a bigger press couldn't do, you know, because you want art that represents the book, that's palatable for a large audience. With limited edition, they can put a guy covered in gold screaming his head off. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. You know, but another press might be like, I'm not sure that represents the book very well or is marketable. But when you're in the limited edition world, anything goes.
And all the limited editions are all hardcover, right? It's all
They
hardcover.
are, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and all 500 are signed by me and Josh Mallerman.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was doing the thumbnail for the video, and my son was in here. He's 3, and he was looking at the Midas cover. He's like, "Oh, he's covered in slime. That's gross."
Yeah.
He just thought that was so. He's like, "Oh, it's gross." I was like, "It's gold."
Either-
he just kept saying
Either
it's
that
slimy and
guy
gross.
got like covered in gold or he fell into a beehive. One or the other.
Got honey all over him. It reminds me of I don't know if you've watched Game of Thrones, but there's a point
I
where
haven't.
they pour the liquid gold over a guy's
Oh,
head
do they
to
really?
to crown him? Yeah. So it's pretty.
Thanks for
cool.
ruining it, Brad. I mean,
Oh, that's like in
Spoiler
season 2,
alert.
Jay.
it's I know the show's only been out for like 30 years, but thanks.
It's only been over for like 5 years too. So
Yeah, I've never seen a single episode, so you just totally ruined it for me. But
It
thanks.
doesn't.
I'm
I don't
sorry.
think
I
it doesn't interest me
apologize.
at all. So I don't. Yeah.
So Ross,
Ross,
how'd you get hooked up with Clash?
So it was kind of me just pushing boundaries, and I obviously wanted to work with them before because I knew who they were and I loved kind of the books they put out. But I didn't know like if they had an open submission period or anything like that. And then I just kind of like reached out to Christoph and was just like, "Do you guys have an open period? I'd love to submit something I've been working on." And then he came back to me pretty quickly and was like, "Oh yeah, send it over. Like we've been wanting to I like your work. I've been wanting to work with you for ages." And I was just like, "Oh, okay."
That's always good to hear, right?
It's always good to hear, but it always freaks me out because I'm just over here in my little bubble, and I don't, why should that publisher?
Ross,
know who
you're
I am?
too big. You're not in a bubble.
It's
I
a
don't think
big
you
bubble.
realize how big you've gotten.
It's like under the dome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like, I was a bit taken aback by it, and I published. Obviously, Andrew at Darklit had got Devil's Pocketbook, and I'd also sent it to him to say, because he said, what else have you got? And I just finished writing it and sent it to him. So Andrew was reading it whilst they were reading it, and then Clash came back quite quickly and just said, "We love it, we want it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I had to go back to Andrew and be like, "I'm really sorry, you really like this, but someone else has come in and I'm going to give it to them."
That's
but
when
he
you
was
start
fine
the
with it.
bidding war, Ross. Made them bid against each other.
That's what I forgot. But yeah, and then that's kind of how it worked. And like I see Clash as a huge step up for me. They've got distribution and just having like the phone calls and stuff with them, and like how they're marketing the book and how they want to do it, and like all of that stuff is covered. And like they've been sharing with me like pre-sale numbers and things like that, which are incredible, and like what bookstores are going to take it. And so for me, like moving up to that where there is a kind of distribution chain set in motion is quite big for me.
And it's just Christoph and Lisa doing it.
Lisa,
right?
yeah.
I mean, for them to be like as widely known as they are, and those two just on the ground doing it, shows you how much effort and work they're putting into it to get the stuff out there. So
yeah.
Well, they've got the baby now, so they can get the child labor going too. So. Yeah.
Either that or
just
like, "We have
find my
fear,
books."
baby, please buy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how it worked out, and I'm thrilled that they're publishing it, because I think they have quite a unique and different kind of readership than I currently have. So I'm excited to kind of
Clash
scare
has
them.
a little bit of a different audience, than what I know. No offense, I love Dark Lit, and what Andrew does with them, but you know what you're going to get, kind of the genre. Clash are all over the place. They have a lot of different genres. We were talking about just before we came on the air that was pretty cool that they're welcoming you for their horror, for their section for this period of time, and of course the grief.
Grief, I love it. Grief.
So. Yeah.
One of the things I like about Clash is that I haven't worked with Clash, but just in observing their process, it seems like they allow each book that they put out to really breathe before they put out another one. Yeah. So each particular work has its own time in the sun for a little bit. They're not overextended, I guess, which is a really cool method. Yeah. Like, here's the book that we're putting out right now, and all the focus is on that one work for a little while.
Well, we're sending them the replay of this. Maybe you'll get contacted for your next one. Does that work out? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
With your permission.
But let the bidding war begin.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does seem like some presses, they put out like so many books at a time. It's like it's hard to focus on one or one to get the attention over the other ones. So it's nice to have a grace period where we're focused on this book now, and then maybe a couple months later a new book will come out.
Yeah. Which is really common, or used to be common, like in indie record labels, because they would gain loyal fans that would follow the record label even more than they'd follow bands. So it's a good way to do it. It's a good way to say, here's our release, give it time, and then focus on the next thing that's coming out.
Yeah, Sub Pop. Doesn't matter what they release, but people.
Right, exactly. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I interrupted because you asked Ross who did the cover. So, Ross, who did the cover?
Who did the cover, Ross?
Now you put me on the spot. Joel, but I've forgotten his surname. He works with Clash. I've got it here. Hang on.
Good old Joe.
Joel, not Joe. I've got it. It was in here. Where is it?
I don't know. It gives me like 80s like synth vibes, the cover, for some reason. I don't know. I guess it's like the different colors of the coffin kind of going down.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, it is Joel. I just lost it again because I was coming back to you.
It's okay. Joel, it's the first time you've talked about the book. So
Joel Amat-Guel, I think that's how you say his name. But yeah, he's designed some of the other covers that they've released and everything, and I think he's their in-house kind of artiste.
Did you have any creative input on the cover?
Well, to be honest, I kind of said, do what you want, and then let me see it. And then they showed me that. They said, oh, we've gone for a kind of like stripped back kind of look. Let us know what you think. And then I looked at it and I was just like, yes, I love it, because it was just simple, plain. And then I literally got it and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that's good. And then I just turned it, because my wife will have final say. And then I turned it to her and I was just like, what do you think of that? And she was like, oh, I love the color scheme. She was like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I love it. I love the fact that the grave is kind of like that. I don't even know how you say it, but like looks like it drops down.
I mean, there's not a lot there. There's not a lot there, but there's also a lot there. You know what I mean? So.
With the I don't know if you could tell, but with the colors of the grave, can you tell how many colors there are? Are there actually like 12 different colors coming up from black? Because that'd be super cool if it was like
I don't know, but now I'm gonna like hurt my eyes.
Nobody said there'd be a test, Brad, on the show.
Sorry, Tyler. I think you were gonna say something a second ago. I don't know if I interrupted you or not.
Oh, I was. Yeah, you did. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say that the Joe who did that cover also did Eric's, didn't he? For
the kind of black.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very good. It's a beautiful cover, man. It looks awesome.
Don, real quick in the comments, asked a second ago, Ross, are there no shots tonight?
Not on a work night, no. But I have cider.
Cider.
But yeah, no, I think those shot days I have to really like plan in advance.
I know out like 2 months in advance. Take a couple of vacation days from.
Yeah, no, they got messy.
She asked another question too for both of you all. If you could have one of your books made to film, which would it be and why?
Go for it, Ross.
Yeah, it's difficult. I would go with I Died Too, but they haven't buried me yet, because like cinematically, I think it is like it would look a little bit like like David Fincher's kind of stuff, like gritty, dark.
Right.
But also, like, I think it's just got such a cinematic feel, and the vibe and the story, and the conclusion of it, I think would work like stunningly on film if it ever got there. Who knows? It might.
What about you, Tyler?
A little foreshadowing? No.
It's a really tough question to answer. I tend not to think of books like, what'll this look like as a movie? Not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously. It's just not how my brain works. Like, the book is the book. But if asked, I would say Midas. I would. And actually, what I was gonna say, that's a perfect timing, because I don't watch a lot of TV. Most everything that's out, the series, the films, like I haven't seen them.
Right.
But there are not a lot of mini series, like limited series that tell a complete story and then just end, like it's a long film. And I think Midas would be really cool, is something like that. Like, one I have seen is, I did see the adaptation of 11/22/63, and I thought that was just wonderful, because it told the story of the novel and it ended, and there's no hope that there's going to be a second season. And I'd like to see more of that. I think there's a lot of great novels that would work in that format. So yeah, I think Midas is a big enough story that it could support multiple episodes without filler, and then just tell the story and be done. I think that'd be really cool. And I'd be the guy who would be just totally hands off, kind of like Ross said with the cover, like, hey, do what you want. I think it'd be neat to see another artist's interpretation of the story. I wouldn't feel disappointed if it went different directions. I'd be thrilled, because directors, screenwriters, all the crew involved, they're all artists, and they're all interpreting the work, and then you've got the actors. So I think it'd be cool to see what that looks like filtered through so many different creative lenses.
I think as well,
like, have fun.
Yeah.
Do what
when
you want.
I was approached about like what I would do with the screenplay of Devil's Pocketbook, and like, would I write it? And I was just like, no, like, I'm not a screenwriter. Like, I would rather a screenwriter write it and then see what it's like. I'm not, I wrote, like you said, I wrote the book. The book is my jam. That's kind of like what I do. And yeah, if someone wants to take it and adapt it and change bits, and I'd love to see what some other creative would do with my work, and and just celebrate some other cool stuff.
It's a totally different skill set, writing a screenplay versus writing a novel. Yeah. So to give it to somebody who has that skill set is probably wise. Yeah. You wouldn't want me writing the screenplay.
I mean, you would think that some things would get left out, some left in, some things maybe moved around. But I mean, if you're taking like the actual writer, say you two, and making you write the screenplay, nothing's going to be left out. It's going to be a 400-page.
I would just give them back the book and be like, "This is the screenplay."
Yeah. Have you guys seen The Black Phone, based on the Joe Hill story?
Yeah,
I have. Yes.
Yeah.
I started it. I just couldn't get into it.
I read the short story. I read the short story the other day for the first time. I didn't realize how short.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's an example of, it's something that's it's a really short story. So it's rare that they add stuff to the film. To usually they're cutting things, but because it's based on a short story, they actually added quite a bit to the film, and it worked really well.
Yeah,
like they did a nice job of being respectful to the source material, but also putting enough in there to fill an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's cool to think of it reversed like that, because like you said, it's usually the other way around, where they're trimming so much stuff, but to beef it up instead.
Yeah, which was cool. I mean, you rarely see a short story adapted in that way. It's usually a novella is like the shortest length that you'll see adapted to film. Typically, it's rare that it's a short story. But yeah, they did a great job.
I feel like that's going to be something that's going to become more popular, adapting short stories to movies like that, I think.
Yeah. It's been a while, but I read, I guess a couple years ago, that Jordan Peele bought the rights to a short story that was hit big at the time. I can't even remember what it was called, but similar kind of thing. Like, maybe we could do something with this on a bigger scale. And some stories, as you know, they suggest more within the story that you could definitely put on the screen. It's just there in the background.
I think we've all read like short stories before where we thought this could be a lot longer or a lot more involved. You know, if you get the right screenwriter, that could happen. You know, maybe not what you were
even
but still.
Yeah, even a simple line, something like, Dad's been gone for 3 years and we haven't seen him since. Like, wow, that suggests a whole lot of drama within the house. Like, where's Dad go? Is he in prison? Is he dead? Does he have another family? Like, so that you can have a single line in a story that is suggestive of a lot more visual, storytelling that you could do.
I'm curious if the anthology that Jordan Peele edited recently if they're going to do adaptations of miniseries or something. Yeah, that'd be cool. Interesting to see.
Wasn't the Boogeyman? Wasn't that just on a Stephen King short story?
Yeah, the Boogeyman.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Came out.
Yeah,
adapted from King's story. Yeah, I think that was back in.
That's a couple months ago, right?
It was Night Shift. Yeah,
Night Shift anthology. So that was like his first one he ever did back in the 70s.
Wow.
Cool.
But you were talking about like the one line evoking something. So I wanted to ask you all. I really enjoyed both of the opening lines to each of your books. Ross's is pretty short. Tyler's yours is a little bit more long, but they both evoked like this, mental image for me. So do you all spend time sort of perfecting the opening line to like draw in the reader right from the go, or is it just whatever the opening line is, that's just what it is?
Well, I'll let you into a little secret. That I actually wrote the opening chapters to this book, and then I was like, yeah, this is cool, this is great. And then I sent them to Tyler to read. And I can't remember if it was a couple of chapters, but I sent him like a few. And then like he came back to me and is amazing. Like, you need to find people that are going to tell you how it is and what it's like. And he was like, this is great. He said, but I think like the second chapter should be the first chapter. And then I was like, oh, okay, why is that? And he was like, well, it has to have movement and like propulsion, and it was like, and you want to be on the train as the train's leaving the station and the wind in your hair, and I was like, yeah, he's got a point. So then I kind of mixed it up, changed it around, and then as soon as that piece was placed in the other plate and I edited it a bit, like it really gave the story the kind of kick I needed. Like it wasn't like a lot of my stuff is quite slow burn, but like this gets you straight into the action, like into the ground and the mud and everything, and the sets up like what the story's going to be. So Tyler, thank you, that was very helpful. But with regards to like the first line, I kind of always try to just something, it can either be long or short, just something that's a bit like punchy and gets it going,
provocative and stuff. Yeah.
Something
you mind if I read your first line off for people? Is that cool with you, Ross?
Of course, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So Henry was burying his daughter again. So that's good. Again, why is that? gets the imagination going, and you got to read more and find out what happened. Yeah. And Tyler, what about you? Do you try to craft like a perfect opening line to draw the readers in, or?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I think a lot of emphasis can be put on a good first line. I think that the ones that follow, like the second, third, and fourth, are equally as important. So, so I want those first couple lines to at least paint a picture. So yes, I do, but I want to make sure that it's each one leads to the next. Is the point.
Sort of like building blocks, you have laying the foundation and building off that.
Yeah, but yes, in the sense that I think it should have some imagery, some poetry to it as well, because it is a reader's first introduction to the book, and you want to let them know, hopefully, that they're in good hands. That I think a bad first line is worse than a mediocre first line, or I'm sure. How do I say this? Like a first line that lets you know, like, you're in a character's head, or big statements, like big thematic statements is the opening of the book. I mean, nothing's going to get me to close a book quicker than that. They're like, when I think about being alive, oh geez, no. So I'm definitely, I want a reader to feel like they're immediately within a world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's a character, here's action, here's a thing happening.
You care to read off your first line?
Well, I was going to ask
go.
before you do that, is this the original first line? Because you just said a little bit ago that you've sat on this for 4 or 5 years. Is that the original first line? Did that ever change?
Good question, Jay. So the original first line is yes in chapter 1. That is the first line that I ever wrote. But then I added a prologue much later in the process. So I guess technically there are 2 opening lines. It depends on how one defines that. So the prologue is technically the very first sentence that you read, but then chapter 1 is the first. It was the opening line for a couple years.
I was going to read the one from the prologue, if that's cool.
Yeah, go for it.
The rider in the black robe tore through the night, the hooves of his horse pounding a steady rhythm over the hard ground. And that just made me think of the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Like, put those together like that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, direct inspiration for sure.
See, I was thinking more like
maybe too much.
like the first part of the first line of chapter 1, the preacher who was no longer a preacher awakened.
Yeah.
That's like, wait a second, the preacher is no longer a preacher. So that's what grabbed me more than I did think in the prologue, this is a Stephen King book I just didn't know about, but when I saw the first line in the first chapter, that's what got me the most. So
yeah, and there's a symmetry to those as well because I'm introducing 2 separate characters. So each one lets you know that one is robed in black and then the other is left his vocation. So and those 2 characters will meet at some point in the story.
That's cool.
So you said, again, you're going back, you sat on this for like 4 or 5 years. The other releases you had, did you just decide to get those out there before this one? I know it was a dark time around 2020 with COVID and getting accepted everywhere, but why wait so long for this particular one before get it out in the world as opposed to all of the other books?
Yeah. So I learned a lot about the publishing industry that I didn't realize. So I'd written a lot of, I think we've talked about this before. I'd written a lot of novels prior to 2020 and none of them were very good. And I just thought that's how a writer gets published is you write a novel and then that's how you get an agent. The only way to get an agent is to write a novel. So I spent all my time writing novels until I started working with Chuck Palahniuk in his workshop. And then I started writing a bunch of short stories. So I held on to this novel because I believed in it. And I thought, I'm going to query this one and just query every single agent that I can until it's been turned down by all of them. And then I'll figure out what to do with it. And I had a really I don't know if blue collar is the right word, but just approach to that is, I believe in the book, but that doesn't mean that an agent will, or even that a publisher will. So let's just see what happens. I'll do my best, but I'll keep writing in the meantime. So I actually, I wrote the entire book, Midas, and then I hired an editor who's a writer named Joshua Moore, and he's written a number of novels and he's written a couple memoirs that are phenomenal. If anyone is ever looking for a memoir that is as gritty and close to the bone as you can check out his memoir Sirens, and then he made a follow-up to that one called Model Citizen, and it's all about addiction. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but he tells this incredible story about being married and having a child, and he suffers a stroke and finds out that he has a hole in his heart and almost dies. And it's the result of his years of addiction. So it's this man looking back on his life going, the choices that I've made had these consequences that have caught up with me years later. And it's just a beautifully written, he's a phenomenal writer, phenomenal human being. So I actually worked with him to rewrite Midas, and he was instrumental in helping me find the story that was there. So, because my first draft of it was pretty awful, and he kind of like what Ross was talking about. I had a moment like you absolutely need someone to tell you, hey, this sucks. This could be better. And you have to have a lack of ego to say, yeah, you're totally right. And he read through the whole book and he landed on one particular visual. And he was like, this is the heart of the book. Like, why are you waiting so long to reveal this? Because this particular scene was like at the very, very end of the story. He was like, no, we need to see this way sooner. And as soon as I thought about it and realized he was right, I realized that the entire structure of the book had to change. So it completely changed everything. I learned so much working with him, so much. So anyway, I held on to this book because I believed in it. I just thought I'm going to try and get an agent with this book, but rather than just sitting around waiting, because it's a long process querying agents. And I've done it before and sometimes it never works. So I wanted to get stuff out. And that's when in 2020, I wrote Criterium and The Dark Side of the Room and put both those out. And I was really inspired by Keelan Patrick Burke and Gemma Amore and even Ross, seeing writers who are putting things out on their own and gaining a readership and an audience. I thought like, that's awesome. Why not? So rather than just holding on to this one thing, thinking eventually it'll come out, let's just put out stuff now.
Well, I was
while hanging on to that one.
Now the other stuff came out, people started knowing your name. How much do you think that helped getting this one out there and having Earthlings like, oh yeah, we like your stuff, so we're gonna go with it? Does that make sense? Did we lose them?
That was for you, Ross.
No,
it's for you, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, it was?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now, since you
I'm looking at Ross. Ross is looking at me.
I'm just going, it's this guy.
I thought we lost you.
Yeah.
So since you got almost RUTH out and Criterium,
now you're no name.
Yeah, how did that help out with MIDAS? You think that helped out a lot, or do you think you still would have landed? Earthlings still would have went with it, or I mean, now that they know your name and they're like, hey, this is cool. We like your stuff. We're gonna go with it. So.
Yeah. So when I talked to Paul about MIDAS, the first thing that he did was he bought Criterium and he read that because it was shorter. So he's like, I can read this, get a sense of what you do, how you write, the type of story that you tell. And then I can decide if I want to spend more time reading your stuff. And he liked Criterium. So it did help. Yeah. That's a really insightful question. It's, I think as writers, it's hard to judge how well known you are. And I don't mean that like in an egotistical way, but it's just, what is your readership? I don't know. Because you can't always judge it by ratings and reviews either. I think some readers have, or some writers have readers who are avid reviewers. And then some, like, I think some writers have readers that read their stuff and they're not keyed into Goodreads and Amazon. They're like, yeah, we read it and liked it. What I mean is that the sales and the ratings and reviews don't always match up. So it can be really hard to judge. It's hard to tell. Yeah. But in that particular situation, it helped, and it's only served me well. And Ross, I'm sure the same is true for you when you do have a body of work. I've seen, it breaks my heart when I see a writer who has a book that they believe in and they're just held onto that so tightly and they're trying to make things happen with this one book that they neglect to keep writing and releasing stuff and putting it out there. Because it's been enormously helpful in nearly every aspect. Like Almost Ruth is coming out in Spain. Ross, I know you've had some books put out in different languages. Like, so you've got work that you can do other things with, whether that's with a film and TV agent or limited editions of those works. Like Ross and I both work with Thunderstorm, and I was able to collect a bunch of novellas into one volume and to re-release Burn the Plans as a deluxe edition. So there's all these really cool things that you can do with your body of work while continuing to move forward. Right.
And that also shows that you're not a one-hit wonder. Like, it's just not this one novel you have. Like, you can put out other stories and have a wider collection of work for people to go out and check out and everything too. So yeah, if you're just sitting on that one thing and don't ever do anything else, you're just wasting your time too.
Yeah. And you never know what a reader's inroad to your work is going to be.
Mm-hmm. I think the more you have the body of work, like, it serves you in the end. So like, you're putting books out there, but then, you know, I've had people that have read Tethered, which I never talk about because it's quite a personal book, but like someone will read that and then they'll pick up another one of my books, and then and only now am I kind of seeing, like, having all these books out and about is the knock-on effect of it. So, you know, people that, you know, picked up the Devil's Pocketbook are more than likely going to pick up the new book, but that new book comes from a publisher that's got a bigger audience, and then this might be the first book that they know of me, so they'll look at what else I've written and then pick up other works. But it's important as well, like Tyler said, is just to, like, keep writing. Like, I'm on my third book now this year, like, all kind of written, and I don't know what I'm doing with them, but they're just ideas that have come to me. I've written them, they're there waiting, and then move on to the next and repurpose other stuff. Yeah, just keep moving. Momentum, as Josh Malaman always says.
Ross, what was your time frame on this one? Did you sit on this for a while, or was this a quick one you wrote? Or
well, this is the one I wrote alongside Josh Malaman. So we had a bit of time, like spare time. He was just about to start writing a book. I was about to start writing this book. And then he kind of floated the idea. He said, "Oh, why don't we write them at the same time? And then every 10,000 words, we'll send our manuscripts back to each other. And then, so you read my first 10,000, I read your 10,000. And then we can kind of, like, just almost like a serialized novel. Like, I'm reading what he's writing at the same time." And it ended up that I wrote the whole thing in 26 days. So, like, and my writing days are like, so I normally write between 2 and 4 hours in that time. So it's the quickest I've ever written something. And I was absolutely terrified the whole time because I was sending my rough draft to Josh Malaman.
I was going to ask how intimidating that was, but
it was pretty intimidating. But like, what I tried to do was, like, so we normally sent our works to each other on, like, the Saturday. So, like, I would spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday getting to my 10K, and then I would kind of reread each section as I went to do it, like a Lansdale technique, and then, like, tidied it up as I went. So by the time, like, and then Josh had said when he read it, he was like, "This is almost good to go. Like, the editing's really good." And which I took as a huge compliment because my editing is normally rubbish. And yeah, so once the book was done, I kind of, I didn't bother trying to send it out to agents that time because I did that with Devil's Pocketbook, and that's why it took so long for it to come out. But yeah, so I just believed in the book, and I was like, well, I'm just going to approach Clash, and I'll send it to Darklit because they already publishing Devil's Pocketbook. And then, yeah, it was kind of as soon as they read it and said, "Yeah, we'll take it." Like, I had the edits come back, which weren't very extensive, so yeah, it was pretty straightforward, and I was over the moon.
I'm gonna need you to watch, like, a happy movie with unicorns and rainbows. You know,
as long as the unicorn dies, it's fun.
The Devil's Pocketbook, and then this one afterwards, and then some of your previous things.
Well, all his previous stuff's not like sunshines and rainbows either.
I was supposed to say, I mean, all of your previous. There's a theme here.
Feel good. Yeah.
There's a Ross Jeffery theme here. I'm gonna need you to watch, like, a happy, I don't know, kids movie or something, just to.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm damaged.
Sort of going off what you all were both talking about, you know, you writing with Josh and Tyler, the guy who helped you out with Midas. And speaking of Josh specifically, because he blurbed your book, Ross. He said, what did he say? Nobody writes grief better than Ross Jeffery. And then Tyler, he wrote the introduction for your book, Midas. So what is it like for you all to sort of cultivate these friendships and almost mentorships in a way with these more, I guess, well-known authors or bigger name authors like that? And then for you all are starting to get your names, you know, well-known and becoming bigger authors. And what is it like to sort of maybe reciprocate that and pay it forward to the up-and-coming people and in the future like that?
I sometimes can't believe that it's happening. Like these are people that I've looked up to and read, and like especially with Josh, like he's so forthcoming with his time, and you know, he's so good at kind of mentoring basically, and kind of encouragement, but also getting you to try different things as well. And yeah, like yes, I've worked with him on these things, but also as a friend, like I can't believe that he's someone I would call a friend, because he's Josh Malerman. And like another friend sitting here, Tyler Jones. But yeah, like it's weird, like because I started writing pretty much, well, I did write before, and I've said this before, but like, you know, I only really took it seriously when COVID struck, that I would start writing, and since then I've written like, well, I'm starting writing my 14th, 15th book since then, so that's quite a lot of books. But yeah, I think like the, you know, sound like an old fogey now, but like the internet and all this kind of stuff like really helps get
the World Wide Web
contacted. Like, you know, I'm like in Bristol and I'm like talking to you guys all over the world. Like it makes the world smaller. And I think, you know, something I've always tried to do, and I will always try and do, is, you know, put a hand out and help other people up, because yeah, like you said, like, and as Tyler alluded to earlier, like we don't know what our readership's like and what our names are like. And when, you know, like Clash said they've been wanting to work with me, I had no idea. So like, it's weird. I still find it weird, and I'm quite humbled that people know who I am and want to work with me, or like want to read, or like actually want to buy the next book that comes out just because it's got my name on it and they don't know anything about it. Like that's really weird. But you know,
they may know you from, you know, from some video reviews a couple of dopes from microphones may have done about your books.
I don't know about that, Jay. I don't know about that at all.
I'm just saying, you know, but
but yeah, like I'll pass over to Tyler. Like he's
years ago when I used to play music in bands, having an audience groove to your music was always cool. I mean, it was the goal to make music and to share it with people. But nothing meant more to me than when another musician liked what you did. You know, if a guitar player, like, man, that thing that you did, the tone that you had, other musicians, and that's how we were as a band too. We really got into what our peers, our musicians, were doing, and it was inspiring, and you know, a bit of healthy competition in that regard. I feel the same when it comes to writers. Like I've been absolutely honored to have some incredible writers do introductions for my stuff. You know, Jeremy Robert Johnson did one for Criterium, Philip Fracassi for Dark Side of the Room, Michael Marshall Smith for Burn the Plans. And these are all writers that I reached out to because I admired them enormously. And a couple of those, like Philip Fracassi in particular, and Michael Marshall Smith as well, have been, like the word Ross used was mentor. They've been so gracious and generous. And like Fracassi has helped me navigate some unknown waters. He's always been there to take phone calls and answer questions beyond. And I hardly ever ask writing questions. It's more business type questions, because something I've learned from all these writers is like they're just artists making what they can the best that they can, and that's the work of it, you know. So I don't have I'm not like, what's your secret? Because there is no secret. They just sit down and they write the stories that they have to tell as best as they can, and that's all any of us can do. But in terms of feeling that inspiration, like I read Fracassi's Boys in the Valley and was like, oh my gosh, this is just phenomenal. This book is incredible. I would love to be able to write something with that level of dread, that sense of purpose, that level of momentum that it has, you know. And so I feel really inspired by that and want to like, all right, I want to try something like that. But it's an enormous honor. In fact, I'd be lying if I didn't say that occasionally I'll go back and read like an introduction, you know, on those down days. I'll look back over and be like, man, this is someone who said some really nice things about my writing. Like, okay, so Tyler, why don't you shut up and get back to work? And that can be really useful, to have that touchstone of like, hey, somebody I admire had something nice to say. So let's get to work.
I think it's pretty cool though. There are so many writers who've experienced like the business part of it and the writing part of it that are willing to share that information to someone who may not know it, and that you guys could reach out to them and they're sharing that information. That just shows you like the writing community, how, behind the scenes that, what we don't know about, you guys are still working together behind the scenes because everyone wants everyone to succeed.
It's not a competition. Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
So Ross, there's a comment in here. I haven't put it up yet, but would you like to talk about your special news that has to do with this comment?
Yes. So
do it.
This is an exclusive kind of.
Exclusive.
But yes, I've been working with Thunderstorm Books, and they are releasing a beautiful hardback edition of I Died Too, but They Haven't Buried Me Yet. It is currently out now for pre-order, I think, and there's only going to be 60 copies of it. Tyler wrote the introduction, and then my good friend Nathan Logan did the cover art, the signature sheet, and there's 3 internal illustrations that he's done as well. And yeah, it's ready. It's there. There's only going to be 60 copies, so if you want, go and snag something really special, and I think Brad's going to show you some pictures of it, if that works.
Yeah,
and it's signed as well, signed by all 3 of us. Signed
by me, Tyler, and Nathan. And yeah, that's kind of a seminal scene in the book. But yeah, it's very exciting.
So the comment was, where are we at? Late to the party, congratulations on publication. He already ordered the Thunderstorm edition of your new book.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Look at that.
We were talking off air. I love the cover because it's the prologue essentially. That's just so evocative for me. I love it.
Yeah, there's loads of like we were saying off air as well. Like there's loads of hidden details. So like the bit in front of the guys digging the grave is like a backpack, which has got significance to the story, and the wraparound cover also kind of carries on this grave site around to the back of the book, and there's other like hidden like totems and things that are there as well.
So is there a bigger copy of this? Do you have like a poster size of it, or like the original painting or anything? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Have a big poster. Yeah.
No, but he is a graphic artist. The guy did it, so he's gonna I'm gonna make him get me a print copy of, just because I love it. And like there is another illustration. I don't know if you could show it, Brad.
Yeah, let's pop it over.
But this one, like for me, like that's exactly how I imagine this scene in this kind of abandoned, like kind of like rundown grief counseling group. And like the way he's like captured the smoke and everything, and like there's other little clues, like the little poster on the wall, the kind of the drinks fountain and stuff. Like all of these little bits come into play like in the book, but like he's just nailed it. And there's 2 other like amazing illustrations as well that's in this edition, and won't be in any other edition. So there's only going to be 60 of them.
So I put the link in the
Congratulations,
chat.
Ross.
Yeah. Cheers, man. And again, Paul was someone that like I reached out to who was like, yeah, I know who you are. Yeah, I want to read it. And I was like, oh wow, okay. here's the book. But it's just, I don't know whether it's Britishness or not, but like I just don't think people know who I am. Or just being humble and not being overly, I don't know.
Maybe a combination of the 2.
Yeah.
So there's at least 59 copies left because one's gone already.
Yeah.
So I put a link in the chat, and there's a link in the description, and however long they last, probably not very long because Thunderstorm usually sells out pretty quick.
Yeah, he's also, I think he sent it to his mailing list as well, so people that normally just buy it because it's Thunderstorm.
Yeah, a lot of the mailing list. A lot of it doesn't even go public. A lot of it gets sold out with the mailing list.
So before the show's over, we could be down to like 5 copies left. So
I bet it's gone before the day's over. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's sold out before today's over. Maybe not today for Ross, but today for me, it'll be gone by now.
Yeah, today for me it was a bit much.
We got a couple of minutes left for Ross. That's cool, man. That's cool that you both have these special editions of these books. Hardcover,
it was really
art in them and everything.
it was really special for me that Tyler, like I wanted Tyler to do the introduction even before it became a thing, because like his advice and the friendship we have, and we message each other all the time, like yeah, it really meant something to have him kind of do the introduction, because without him, that beginning of that book wouldn't have panned out the way it had, and I'd have still been probably editing it now, trying to get the life into it. But
I remember a long time, I guess when you first started writing it, you sent me a message on Twitter with, like, I guess the first chapter, and that's the support group. So that was before the prologue and everything.
Yeah.
So a lot has changed since, I guess it's been what, a year and a half ago or whenever you sent that message.
Yeah, and what I kind of I liked about this book as well is I think when I was writing like the Juniper trilogy, which I absolutely love, like because it was all set in America, like I was kind of like, it didn't drag the writing, but it was kind of like I always had to kind of like really think about kind of what I was doing, like what it would look like, and do lots of research. And but with the, like, so the Devil's Pocket book, I Die Too, but They Haven't Buried Me Yet, like I've kind of, they are set up in the same universe, because there's a character that is mentioned in both books, and
so a little Easter egg,
little Easter eggs. And then another book I've kind of written, which is just sitting in the background, is called Harvesting the Nightmare Fields, and that links in with another character that's in these as well. So it's kind of like I'm almost building a little, I don't know, Jeffrey.
You could say it. You could go ahead and say it. The Ross Jeffery universe.
The Jeffrey verse.
But yeah, it's quite cool, and also because it's all set around where, like, kind of like Bristol at the minute, like I'm able to kind of, I know what places look like, so I can just write, oh yeah, you took a left and then ended up on this road, and it's a lot easier writing just in English.
I'm sure that's a lot easier for you than having to research the American South and all the different slang terms and everything like that. Yeah,
but I quite like it, because when I started writing, like I was just like, immediately I was just like, yeah, it's going to be in America, because to me, growing up, horror was American. It was all I knew, like, really. But like, yeah, I'm quite good. I'm now trying to base some of it here. But yeah. Anyway, that's long-winded.
This book, Ross, I think it's a book that people will talk about. I think it'll generate conversation. It'll generate a lot of opinions. I think it's a bold book that people will discuss and argue about, and maybe even fight over, which you can't ask for more than that.
I can't.
So it's really exciting to see it, released into the world, and to see what those reactions will be. Because not every book does that. There's certain books where you're like, yeah, it's a great book, it's a good story, but there are other books where after reading it, you're like, this is gonna split people. And this is people are going to feel strongly about it one way or the other. Yeah, like a lot of Eric Ruaka's work is that way as well.
Yeah, and it was interesting, because because I'd finished writing it, and like Josh kind of knew how it ended, because I spoke to him like months before writing it and told him exactly everything that happens in the book, and he completely forgot. So when he was reading it, he was reading it like he never knew what the ending was. And then he was just like, oh, yeah. And then he said, he was like, oh, yeah, okay. It'd be interesting to see if you send it out to a couple of people what they think of it. And so I did that, and had some feedback. And then I was talking to Rain King, and like I sent it to him, and he read it, and he was kind of like, this is a bold book. And I was like, yeah. And he wasn't telling me like, it's a bold book, don't do it. Like, but he was like, this is a bold book, and like, if I can see your heart in this book, I can see that you are standing on the right side of history. Like, just, it's bold. I wouldn't change it. And I was like, okay. And it was kind of like just hearing that kind of acceptance from like early readers, and there was quite a lot that I sent it to, and everyone from differing backgrounds and stuff like that. And the resounding thing is it's bold, but it's powerful. And I was just like, okay, that's cool. So I might not be back on here anytime soon, but it's been a pleasure.
We'll wait for everybody to read it first and see what people's reactions are going to be.
See the fallout.
See the fallout first. Then we'll come back like Where are they now? Ross? Yeah.
Yeah, who remembers that guy? But yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tyler. That's brilliant. Thank you.
So I want to ask you all. We've been kind of joking about grief, but both of these books are.
Let's joke about grief.
Let's joke about grief.
Yes.
Both of them are about a lost child. So what is your all's? And Ross has basically been dubbed the king of grief horror at this point by a lot of people.
Right,
Yeah.
but I remember, like, in preparation for the show a little bit, to jog my memory, I
You
went
did
back
some
to
prep?
watch. Well, I went back and watched
Wow.
when Tyler was on the first time with us. He mentioned that he likes to write broken characters, basically, like characters that are up against this. Something's happening that they might something's their circumstances, something's going on. They're broken. So yeah, so Ross may be the king of grief horror, or the president of that world or whatever. But Tyler knows how to bring out the grief too. So.
Well, I will say with Almost Ruth, real quick, there's a scene in there, I won't say what it is, but it was the most like authentic form of like first encounter with grief of a character dying that like I've ever read. Like I instantly cried and teared up reading that one certain chapter and passage. So it was like, that was, I'm sure Tyler knows what I'm talking about, but it was like, you captured that like straight essence. Cause I've experienced that before. It's like, you did it perfectly. If you could, horribly way to say it, but you did that perfectly, Tyler.
That's
perfect.
I totally understand.
Perfect, horribly, yeah. So like that was
horribly,
like,
perfectly.
The most visceral experience of grief I've ever read. Like initial someone coming in contact with like, oh, they found their loved one passed away.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
Wow.
So Tyler definitely knows the grief too. So
that's cool to hear, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. So do you like writing the grief stuff? Is it just emotionally draining for y'all? Like, what is it about the grief that you all sort of?
Do you like to sit around Saturday night thinking about grief?
But
seriously,
rocking in a chair. Oh,
do we need to call somebody special?
You both seem to sort of to gravitate towards it. It's not just these two, but your new books. You deal with grief in your other stuff. So is that just? It sounds weird to say. Is that like your comfort zone? But like, is that your comfort?
It's a comfort zone that offers no comfort.
Yeah.
It's odd. Like I don't like I'm someone that, and I spoke about this on another podcast recently, but like I haven't really suffered that much grief in my life. Like I've got a really small family, and then like I can count on my hand like family members that have passed away, but it's just something that I don't know whether it comes from like a faith perspective or not, but like just that kind of loss of someone that you were never going to see again, or that it was like like will I ever see my wife again, or like if my children die, like just the kind of how they're completely gone. And like I always reference this, but like Laurel Hightowers, like Crossroads,
yeah.
Like that her son that dies is like 22 years old, and I was talking to someone, I said, it's awful like losing a child. Like I've known friends that have lost children, like babies, but like losing someone who's they could be 15, like 20, 21, like that's like 15 years of them being in your life and like crafting a world around them, and they're their own person, and like 15, 21 years of memories that are made. Like that must be soul destroying, like to see that happen. And like I don't know, like when I write grief, I imagine that it's members of my family, which must be quite weird. I probably need counseling, but that's how I get in the zone, and that's how I write them, because I'm like, how would I feel if this was the case? Like if my for I Died Too, like if I felt like I was at fault for something I did or said that caused my daughter to run away and then not know if she's alive or dead, like how would that make me feel? And that's how kind of like I channel it. But I don't know why, like grief just seems to have got me writing about it. I don't know, like it's just my muse at the moment. I'm not too sure, because I'm thinking about the other 3 books that I've got currently, and they all deal with grief in some way. And I think it's what I love about it as well is that like Tyler's grief might be completely different to mine, and how I deal with it and how he deals with it might be completely different. And I think that's something everyone can kind of relate to in a way, like however the characters act, people can find like common ground in that grieving process. And they also might not have been able to verbalize, which I get quite a few reviews being like, oh, I've read this and this is exactly how I felt when my dad died or something like that. So but they hadn't known that anybody else felt like that until I'd written it, and it's kind of like it helps them deal with it as well. But sorry, it's a bit long-winded. Go on, Tyler, you take it away.
That's okay, man.
Oh, there's a sigh before his, so we gotta get settled in here.
Yeah, you know, a couple years ago, I think it was 2020. I was on a podcast with Scott J. Moses. It might have been Laurel on the podcast as well, and it was about grief horror, and I was a part of this, and I'd never heard that term before. Like somebody put, I think, Criterium at the time in that category, and I was like, grief, what's that? I not even had no awareness that this was a thing. I'd never classify my stuff like that, but I understand why it could be. So for me, the grief is always secondary to the brokenness, like Jay pointed out.
Right.
That's my first and primary concern is broken
Make sure
characters.
they're broke.
Yeah, truly. Because otherwise, I just have very little interest. And I think most readers instinctively feel that way. I mean, if you look at books in general, unless there's some, highbrow literary navel gazing, you're dealing with broken people. I mean, horror has always done that. Unless it's like an Ivy League guy who's like, oh, I didn't get into the school I wanted to go into. It's like, no one relates to that, man.
Right.
That's not real.
So uninteresting if it's not something wrong with you or you're going through some kind of problem or something.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about reading is that we all have these family secrets. Like if we were to talk off air and I was like, Brad, tell me about your family. Tell me everything, every dark and dirty secret in your family. You'd have some interesting stories. So would you, Jay. So would you, Ross. Everyone does. So reading is this personal way of being able to process a lot of the stuff that has happened to you, to your family, that builds the foundation of what is your life, that makes you who you are. And it's full of brokenness and it's full of broken people. So it's cool when fiction at least acknowledges those secrets. Like, in Criterium, it was the fact that the kid's dad had died of a drug addiction, right, and the kid ends up with the same addiction. Like, how many families have that? So the grief is secondary, I suppose. But yeah, it's there. And, looking where I'm at now. So it's interesting because, Brad, you held up Heavy Oceans earlier, which is a short novel I have coming from Darklit Press in December. So that was the first book that I wrote after I'd written, Almost Ruth, an unpublished novel right now called Night of the Long Knives, MIDAS, and something unpublished right now as well, that all deal with grief, loss, and dead family members. It occurred to me at a certain point, like, Tyler, can you write something without having like someone's family dying? But intellectualizing it, I realized, like, okay, I'm trying to work through some stuff. And once it took 4 books to finally exhaust my emotional connection to the material, and that finally occurred in the last thing that I wrote, which is well, I won't talk about that right now, but I wrote something and I felt like a weight was lifted, like a burden slipped off my back. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. I've emotionally exhausted my connection to this thing. And it happened. It took me 4 books to get there. And now it's happened. And it's interesting to look at least for me, what it looked like starting in Midas and where it ended. And like there's this peace and hopefulness that's in this unpublished work right now. And so immediately I was like, all right, let's see what the next thing I write is. And it's got broken characters, but it's like way more balls to the wall insanity.
Okay.
So it's like the beginning of a new era. Like it took me 4 books to really process something, and now I've done it, and we'll see what happens next.
It's interesting because like before I even got into like reading horror as much as I do the last few years, I didn't think that was a subgenre, I guess, of grief horror. Like, you know, like you said, you didn't know about that term till a few years ago. Like you guys could probably start your own support group. You know, you, Ross, Cal Lutsky was you know, he's big on grief horror too. I don't know if he's still in chat or not. Get Laurel in there. I mean, that could be like just a whole group. I know it's probably a stretch, but just think if a reader is going through certain kinds of grief, they use those books as some sort of a support system. Oh, this stuff's happening to other people too. You know, it might hit them a certain way. I know it's kind of a little stretch, you know, it's fictional and real life and all that stuff, but still, like you said, there's a lot of family secrets and things happen in people's families that just end up in the books, in the stories, maybe subconsciously, that, you know, without really thinking about it too much. So it could be huge. I mean, it could be like, you know, you guys could have like a big group. This could be pretty popular. Take the world by storm. The grief horror support group. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's better.
Well,
That's
it seems like it's
Cox, like in Ross's book.
Yeah.
What was that?
The chairs of caring circles.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like if we look back at all the horror novels that we've loved, that we grew up loving, grief is always present. It's just it didn't have its own subgenre, and because grief is what it's a reaction to loss.
Yeah,
it doesn't even always have to be death. It could be a broken family.
And sometimes it's sometimes in there, and it's not so blatant in your face. And then maybe like second or third reread of a story or something, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't really see that angle to it or why that happened. You know, so.
Yep, totally.
There's a
I think as well.
Oh. Go ahead, Ross.
I think I was going to say, like, as well, I think like grief is also like the cost of loving someone so completely. So even though you're talking about grief, it's actually the outpouring of love that you had for them that is also there as well. So it's kind of, they're like love stories.
Yeah,
dark and twisted and
dark and twisted.
Stories.
These aren't those Lifetime Hallmark movies.
No. This is not where they break up and get back together. They break up and they're done forever.
Yeah, where two become
one of them's dead.
There is a quote from Midas I wanted to read that sort of going along with this. Someday death will sneak up and rob you of something you didn't know you could live without. Who will you be then? What do you have to do that will take the pain away? That's great writing from Tyler there. And that's interesting. You said it took you 4 books to sort of work this. I don't want to say work it out of your system like it's gone forever, but sort of process and get through that. Because usually, I don't, from my standpoint, it'd be like 1 book and I've done it all in there. But it took you 4 books to get through that. It's interesting that happened. Was it?
Yeah.
And with those 4 books, was like each book like a different sort of stage of that process going through it all?
Yeah. Looking back on it now, I see that far more clearly. Yeah.
So
and
that
quote
books,
that
Tyler?
you read, what's that?
What are the 4 books?
Midas, Almost Ruth, a book called Night of the Long Knives, and another one that's unpublished. Well, 2 of those are unpublished. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that quote that you read, the question, like a character's asking that of someone else. You know, what will you do when this happens? Not if, but when it happens.
Yeah.
And what do you have that'll take away the pain?
Yeah.
Who will you be then? The way I think of it is, I don't know, we live in a time of great delusion and deception where so much effort and so much time is spent on things that don't matter, whether it's binge watching shows for 20 hours. It's like this constant pursuit of pleasure and what feels good, like incessant, and it's only getting worse to the point where I think that people largely don't spend enough time considering these things that are going to happen. Like, you have soldiers going into war. What do they take? They take weapons, they take body armor, they take helmets. There's a plan of action to deal with the situation. And firefighters are the same way. You don't go into a fire like just in a t-shirt and jeans. Yeah. You go prepared with something to deal with the situation. And so I think that for writers, we are good at projecting our current selves into a future state, meaning wondering what will it be like if my wife dies or my son? What will that feel like? What will that look like? Who will I be? How will I deal with that? And it's a way of like, you can say, well, that's kind of dark and depressing, or it's knowing that there's going to be a fire at some point in the future. And who do I need to be in order to handle that with some grace, some strength, some dignity? How, do I want to be the guy who falls apart, or do I want to be the guy who comforts others when the bad things happen? So it's a way of armoring the self to deal with the suffering that will occur in life. So I don't think it's morbid necessarily. It's like, well, what else are we certain about in life? There's nothing. So I don't really see it that way, like as this morbid thing, but more as a mental exercise.
Something that kind of keeps you grounded in a way, so.
Yeah. And we've all seen people or known people who have gone through situations and watched a family just crumble, fall apart. And I often ask myself, how does that happen? Like, the individuals are not prepared for life hitting them the way that it did. So how do you find a way of existing now that will work in the best of times and in the worst of times?
Yeah. Just side note, those two books you have that are not published yet, do you want us to go ahead and call Clash up? we have Ross here.
Yeah, tell them I sent you. Like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
they might not know who I am, but just tell them.
There's a comment. Night of the Long Knives, is that referring to 1930s Germany, or is that something completely
wow different? Good. Yeah, yes, it is a reference to that, but not explicitly within the book. But yeah, so the Night of the Long Knives, what they're referring to there is it was more than one night, but it started on one night where the Nazi Party came to power, and they had everyone who opposed them murdered. Like, several hundred people were taken out, whether they were political or military. Anyone who would oppose the rise of the Nazi Party to full and complete power was taken out, like, all at once. So it's like just a night of mass murder to consolidate power. And it's also the title of an AC/DC song.
There you go. A little bit more maybe lighthearted.
Pick your reference.
Yeah.
One rocks, the other does not.
Nazi Germany or AC/DC.
Yes.
There you go. Which one are you choosing there now? Well, I wanted to ask about kind of what you were talking about, like, who would you become, if you were, when you experience this loss. That's sort of leading to sort of my next question about writing sort of unlikable characters. And I'm thinking of Henry sort of in particular. Like, he's not a likable person, but you are able to sympathize with him as the reader. So is that hard for you all as authors to pull off, to sort of write this unlikable character, but also on the other hand you want the readers to sympathize and sort of feel sorry for as well? Is it sort of a balancing act to do?
Yeah, I think Henry's going to get me into a lot of trouble. But yeah.
He's just like wiping the sweat. I was
like,
what's going on?
Shoot. I didn't know that crush was coming.
But yeah, like, and it's all him. It's not me. But yeah, like, I think Tyler in his introduction, like to the Thunderstorm Books said it perfectly, like hurt people. And like, yeah, I just really love writing horrible people, because I don't know whether it's because I'm nice, or I like to think I'm nice, and I just kind of can, like, all the horrible people that I've ever met in my life that have just been vile, like really set me on edge. So like when I write them, I just imagine all of those, and then just put them in a melting pot, and just because like there is something, like I love writing good characters, but there is something amazing when you can really like write someone that people hate, but then they still have something in them that makes you want to like even just journey with them, or like even just hope that there is a bit of good in them, that they're not too gone. And I think like most of my books deal with someone like that, like I had Fleming in Tome and others, but I think Henry was he was a great character to write, and I think because of his age, some of the things
50 or so, I think,
right? So some of the things he says are kind of things that I can get away with using because he is that age, and like his views on life are a bit different, and a bit like I just like think of like conversations I had with my granddad, and like the words that he would use in his time and the words that I use now. I'm just like, no, granddad, we don't use that word. And he's like, what's wrong with that word? Like that word.
Back in my day,
yeah. And I'm just like, no, we don't use that word. And he's like, oh, okay. You do you, I'll do me.
You do you.
Yeah. So I think and it's just really, really, I love it. And like, I forgot his name, but like the main character in Tyler's Midas, like
Jeremiah,
he is also, like he's also a little bit unlikable, but I still can't not like him. Like there's just a bit of him that I'm like, oh, that could if things panned out the way they had, be me, like wanting that desperately and like doing everything I can to get it. So then I'm just like reading along, thinking like, oh, come on, like you've got good in you. Let's see you like.
You kind of root for like the bad guy in a way, not the bad guy, but like you're rooting for him.
But so Henry's going to get me in a lot of trouble, and it's all Henry.
But you know the cool thing about a character like Henry and the way that he's written is that maybe we need more of that. Maybe we need more of seeing humans as humans and not just like hating people because we disagree with their views on certain things. Like it's become a really strange measuring tool that we use. Like, how do you feel about X, Y, and Z? And if we disagree, you are a bad person. Like, well, maybe there's more to us than that, you know? And that's the great thing about fiction, is that we're able to follow someone along, and you don't have to like them, but can you empathize with them? I mean, that's if you really think about it in a weird way, that's what the entire healthcare system is built on. That it doesn't matter who you are or what you believe, that you're worthy of receiving care if you're sick. And then you expect people within a healthcare setting to care for the patient, whether they're whatever they are, whatever political party they are, whether they're racist, bigot, whatever. You're going to care for that person. Why? Because they deserve it. Because they're human. And it's okay to not agree with somebody and not hate them. Like to Ross's point, which is what his book got me thinking about. And it's something I touch on in the intro, is what is Henry's story? Because we don't get his backstory, but it's there. It's definitely there. And there's pain there. And so fiction allows us to empathize, and Ross does a really great job of painting. Like, it kind of reminds me a little bit of There Will Be Blood, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. There's nothing likable about that guy. Nothing.
I drink your milkshake, but
but you can't look away.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating, and there's some part of you that wants to see him do well, especially when, he adopts the kid, and then you're like, oh, now you're using the kid. Okay. But you can't look away from it. So it's entertaining as well. Which, if you're going to give me a really terrible person, at least make them entertaining.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Like everything you just said, I think of, and I don't want to turn this into a political show, obviously, but I think of politics.
Please don't.
You know, no,
Yeah.
I won't. But you know,
Okay.
for the past several years, it's almost like friendships have ended
Yeah.
because they're on the opposite sides of politics. It's like, just don't talk politics. You know, what
That's
I
it.
believe and what you believe be totally different. We can still be great friends, you know, and
Mhm.
treat each other with respect. But you don't get that anymore because that just blows everything up. So,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking of when you
It's
went,
a sad moment that we've reached.
right.
Yeah, I even see that sometimes with like I live here in Portland, and sometimes you'll see certain speakers they're going to do a speech at a college, and it gets canceled because people disagree with their views, and it's like,
Right.
to me that's just odd. Like,
Yeah.
let ideas battle. Like, we're all just humans trying to make sense of everything
Disagree.
as best
That's
as we
what
can.
makes the country the way it is. You could disagree, but
Yeah.
know,
If you
so
make the leap to the person I disagree with is evil, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Because then what prevents you? Then anything you do is justified.
Yeah.
You know, well, I punched this guy because he supports so and so. Well, society can't really function if we're all running around doing that.
right. That concludes the Sunday afternoon political chats
That was it.
with Tyler Jones and Ross Jeffrey.
We'll ask a lighter question. You know, go there.
Yeah.
So let's
Please,
so
pulls out.
I want to
this critical
protest
grief.
concerts. I think I'd like to see people cancel concerts.
Yeah.
Like a whole group of people just
Sorry,
like,
I
this
don't like
person is so awful. They
Yeah.
shouldn't
I
be
don't like
allowed to
Taylor
play.
Swift.
Yeah.
Though be careful. You'll get canceled quick if you talk about the Swifties there, Ross. They'll come
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
I don't even know what
Well, I
the
didn't
Swifties
name
are.
anyone.
Can we just cancel all country music and
Uh-oh.
It's like a mafia.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Brad.
That wasn't me that said that. That was Henry.
Well, everything bad Ross says, oh, it's Henry. He's speaking through me.
He's in here somewhere. He's in here.
He's the muse. So I'll talk about Midas. Midas obviously is based off the, I don't know, folktale, fairy tale of King Midas. So is that a big inspiration for you? Do you like that story? Yeah, the gold Midas touch. Is that something that did that come first? You wanted to base the story off that, or did you have this story? It's like, oh, let's pull this sort of the King Midas folktale into that.
Yeah, I actually tried not to familiarize myself with that myth. Like everyone knows the idea of the myth and the power that I wanted it to be part of this story. I didn't want to lean too hard into the myth at all. But it was obviously present there. But yeah, I just thought, what if we could pull this into a different area and just in fact, I didn't even want to call it Midas, to be honest.
Okay.
I tried to come up with a different title. I asked my agent to think. I asked Paul Miller at Earthling to think. And everyone was like, it's simple. It's succinct. Like, just keep it that. I was like, all right. Because it forces comparison. But then it also, it is what it's called. So it's been called that for so long that it's hard to think of what else it could be called. But I like the idea of the concepts or truths of certain myths coming back in new forms. And I think that we always tend to respond to that. There are certain universal truths and they can be retold in certain ways that feel new and different, hopefully. Yeah. So obviously mine is inspired by that, but that's about the extent of it.
Okay.
After I finished the book, I went back and reread the myth and was like, oh, I wonder if it would have been different if I had done that prior to writing it. But I kind of like that I didn't.
I think as well, what I love Midas is that, like for me, it also had like some of its kind of feelers in like Pinocchio and like there is one scene and I read it like last Halloween. Like I was like one of the first that read it. Yeah. And I can still picture the same scene like it was yesterday. And I haven't read it since, but like sitting at the piano. And that scene is so beautifully done that like just the whole setup, the room, kind of the piano and like just like it is incredible. And the fact that's still, and like, there's other parts that still live with me as well, but like the fact that I read it, like over a year ago, and I can still vividly picture all of it, is just shows you kind of what a masterpiece it is. Like it
real quick, there's a picture of the piano scene.
But yeah, it's an incredible
Thank you,
book.
Ross. I appreciate that. And it was you who first pointed out the Pinocchio comparison, and that I never would have thought of that. And once you said it, I realized absolutely, you're totally right about that. Never would have occurred to me. But thank you, man. I appreciate that. Very kind.
Also, just an update. They've sold 40 copies. There's only 20 to go.
Like 20 left.
Yeah, nice.
It's gonna be gone for the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Tyler, like sort of the folk tales, like Brothers Grimm and stuff, they get retold over and over in different adaptations, different versions. So that's cool that even though you weren't necessarily basing it off the Midas myth, you still have sort of that, I guess, intrinsic DNA woven through it in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You could have called it Goldfinger, rip off James Bond.
Gold member. Yeah.
Gold member. Austin Powers.
Yeah. I like gold.
Yeah, it'd have a different feel to it, though, I reckon. That way.
If it was called Gold Member, it's a little weird.
Like, is this a comedy? Oh, shoot, it's not. Yeah.
Well, the book too, it takes place in the Old West.
I was going to ask you how did we get to the Old West? Like what not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I meant to ask you earlier, what made you settle on doing an Old West type setting? Because I know you've done other older settings before, like Almost Ruth was the setting, and so on and so on. But yeah.
So Almost Ruth and Midas take place in the same world. So the town of Almost Ruth is just on the other side of the forest from where Midas takes place. So they are the same dark forces at work in both books. So the West setting, I wanted it to be in a time, in an era where there's no technology, where it's just a simple way of life. And some of those decisions are hard to explain how you reach it. It's just visually, it's like it feels right. So you go with the gut on that. But I wanted to make sure, as a conscious effort, to make sure that it wasn't a Western, that it takes place in the Old West, but there's no swinging saloon doors and gunslinging strangers and that kind of thing. I wanted it to feel timeless in a way, and I hope that doesn't sound too pretentious, but like to my mind, it could almost take place in a medieval village and work just as well. Yeah. So we're talking about the people, and the location is almost secondary, but yeah. So it just felt right. It just felt right.
So it was Almost Ruth. Is it actually the same time frame too? Because I don't remember if there was actually a date in Almost Ruth.
Yeah, there's no date mentioned, but it's a similar time frame. Yeah. Okay. And
this is set in 1859, I think. For Midas,
it spans a few years. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, same time frame. There's even a talk. There's like a throwaway line about the town Asheville that Almost Ruth takes place in. Like, they get some builders to work on their house from Asheville.
Okay. So I love it when authors connect their worlds like that, like Ross is doing with his stuff, and like you're doing. I just love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Once that happens, I mean, Ross, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like it expands the stories that can be told.
But I'm now needing to keep track of it all. I got like a spreadsheet. Like,
I was gonna say, you need to have maps on your wall.
This was set here, and this character was this old at this time, and like all that. But it's worth it because it works out really well. And then I love the fact you can just pick, also the Thunderstorm edition has a short story in there that's kind of not ever been published before.
Cool.
And it's for one of the characters. Well, one of the other characters out of I Died Too, but they haven't buried me yet. Like a little bit more of a backstory about them, which is really cool. But yeah, I like the fact that when you're building your own universe, like, yeah, you can just be like, oh, I really like that character, but they only got a little bit of airtime, but their story was so like expandable that you can then be like, oh yeah, I'm going to chuck her in the next book, or chuck him in the next book. Yeah.
And you commented a second ago talking about the introduction to Midas. It's a little less King Midas and more the Monkey's Paw. Great tale of Gothic undertones. He also said Mallory was a bit of a jerk because it kind of spoiled the stuff.
That's very kind. Thank you. Well, I have a question for you, Ross. So, speaking of Monkey's Paw and all that, Midas was written in conversation with Pet Sematary. So by that, I mean that there's a work that I couldn't get out of my head. And I started thinking about, what if in Pet Sematary, there's this loss that occurs, the loss of a child. And in the immediate aftermath, dad does something that he shouldn't do, which leads to death. But I thought, what if a story was told like that, but it didn't lead to death, but to brokenness? So what would that path look like? So that's the phrase I've been using, is in conversation with. And I'm curious, have you ever written a book that you thought was in conversation with another work?
No, but there's one I want to write, which I haven't written yet. Hang on, I think I've got the other book here. Hang on.
He'll have it written by next week.
I was gonna say, like,
Probably,
overnight we'll see pictures of.
He'll draw 5 chapters. He'll do his little doodle for the title screen, and then
oh, he's back. Shh.
Stop talking about me.
I'd love to have him do a doodle for me someday. Like,
yeah,
he's really gifted.
We're talking about
you're back.
Sorry, your title page doodles that you always do. Yeah. I always like those.
Who, me?
Yeah, you're a gifted artist, man.
You always write the title out really pretty.
He's like,
do some kind of little doodle on there.
Get away. Yeah. But there's a book I want to write, but for some reason, as soon as I finish my Western, I just jump straight into writing another book, like literally 2 hours later. And this one slipped my mind, but it's What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
Richard Matheson. And the concept was around a man who, so the opening scene is he's in his bathroom hanging himself, cheery number. And there's a man standing in the toilet behind like a curtain. That's the only image I had of like this guy killing himself, but a man standing behind this curtain with a bowler hat on and an umbrella. And then he kind of hears like an alarm going off, and then he gets himself out of his like dying. Basically, his wife is in a coma, and I haven't read this book yet, but I did watch the film years ago.
I was gonna say I don't know how, like, I haven't heard. Are they exact or like?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've not read it, but I got it because I kind of remember it being. And the book, his wife's in a coma, and he wants to kind of bring her back out of the coma, so he keeps kind of committing suicide in different ways to spend a little bit of time there to talk with her and kind of encourage her back. And then it just carries on. But yeah, that would be my in conversation with another cheery number from Ross Jeffery.
Yeah,
make it happen.
Now that Josh is here in the chat, Josh Mallard, we got to quit talking about him now.
Yeah,
Josh, I'll see you
talk about him more.
He said he's going to write a whole story based solely around Tyler's outfit he's wearing today.
Yeah, he hasn't got any trousers on though.
That's how we roll, man.
That's an old TV trick. I did that doing sports. Yeah.
That's how you roll.
I never stood up.
When you were radio, you were nude all the time, right? Doing radio.
Radio, I was just naked all the time. TV, I was dressed like Tyler at the top, and I was like shorts or sweatpants underneath. So, yeah.
Hamlin Bird's got a question for you guys. He was wondering. He's listening in while he's at work, so appreciate that, Hamlin. He wants to know how many drafts you all do for each manuscript, And congratulations on the new releases.
Thank you very much. Well, I stupidly, for my Western, decided to type it on a typewriter. So I loved it. Like, the experience has been amazing, but it just took a lot longer. But now, so yeah, I've done that on the typewriter. Now I need to type it all up, correct all my errors, and then I'll probably do, I think, probably 3 drafts. I get it to where I kind of like it, and then I might do another draft after that. But and then obviously if it goes to a publisher, they'll send back kind of revisions that I look at as well. But yeah, I Die 2, that was ready within kind of when I finished it. I just went back in and tidied a few things, but and then I sent it to Clash, and then their editor worked on it with me. But yeah, generally it's normally about 2 or 3, and one of those will be part kind of rewrite, part edit, so like moving bits around and kind of getting things to work.
What about you, Tyler?
You know, I don't really count the drafts. It's hard to say. I'm sure it ends up being 3 or 4 maybe. But I do this thing. I don't know if anyone else does this. Like, everyone else has their own methods, you know, kind of like we talk about the Lansdale method, you know, where you go back and edit over things before moving forward. So I tend to keep notes to myself as I'm writing. So there'll be the document as I'm writing, and then I'll go down several spaces so that it's not visible, and I will make notes to myself as I'm going.
That's what I do.
Notes of things that need to happen in the future, notes that needs to be fixed. I mean, they could be as tiny little things like, did they drink beer that night?
Right.
Yes or no. Sometimes they're questions to myself. So I just keep going, just keep the momentum going in the story, and I don't worry about going back and fixing anything. So by the time I actually get to the very end, I have pages of notes to myself. And then I'll print those up separately. And when I go through the entire book, I will do my best to put the notes in some chronological order as well. And then I'll redline them out as I fix them throughout the process, so that I can actually see visually where I'm at and what needs to be done. And at that point, I will send it. This is probably the single most important part of the process, is I send it to a couple friends of mine. And one of them is a guy, you know, Brennan LaFaro. And we send stuff back and forth, and we've got this kind of shorthand with editing, and it's great because we can be really honest with each other. And I don't mean brutally honest, because there's no brutality. It's just a space where the ego doesn't exist, and we can say, yeah, hey, clunk, or hey man, this sucks, do it better. And there's no being wounded by this. It's like, but it's also very friendly as well. And having another set of eyes, particularly another writer, telling you what can be better is vital. And that's always where the draft gets tightened even further, to the point where I'm really happy with it. So I don't know. I mean, that's like 3 or 4 by that point in time.
Mallerman might steal your idea because he says that's way too reasonable.
Yeah, I've never heard of another writer who like leaves notes to themselves in the process, but it's become such an integral part of how I work, and it keeps me, like we were talking about what Josh says. You know, you brought it up, Ross, momentum. Like it's a simple word that he says a lot that is the defining word of what it takes to write a book. I think is the momentum is so vital. Because there's a feel and a rhythm and even an atmosphere that you create, that you're trying to, it's an illusion you're trying to step into every time you write. You're like a magician, but you're trying to fool yourself first before you can fool an audience. Does this trick work? And to keep that going as best as you can during the process. So the note taking became a way for me to stop, because I am the type of person that wants to go back and fix it right away. But then I'm trying to come back to where I was and keep moving forward. So I was like, I'll just keep notes to myself. And then I started that early on, and it becomes, a good, sometimes 15 pages of notes.
Yeah. I kind of like I do what you did. Like I have the bottom of the page where I'm working, and then like I enter lots. So it's out of my view. And then the other day I was writing and I wanted to have a mask for a character, but I didn't have any idea what the mask would be, and I wanted it to be kind of something that's never been seen before, something quite iconic. So I just wrote in my text at the top, mask in closed brackets, and then in my notes I was like, you need to find a cool mask. And then I was just like carried on, and then when I found one I then went back to the note and then like changed it all. Very cool. It's quite like a good way of keeping track as well. And like you said, like it might just be I need to check that he's drinking beer, or did he put sugar in his coffee and he doesn't take sugar and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I could see where if you're trying to picture or come up with the perfect mask, like you're going to stall yourself out and just be stuck on that point until you.
And that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And like I even went to bed going, I need to find a mask. And I just remember sitting in bed looking on my phone at masks and like from like African culture and like
Then you just jump up at 2:00, like I got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got it.
and then it was just done. And I was like, yes, that mask is creepy and it's never been seen before. So
in my 2:30 a.m. like 3 more books written. And then
I think that's great advice for anyone who says they have writer's block. Like the writer's block might be I'm stuck on this mask part. I have to get it perfect. Just move on and come back to it later.
I'll just put it in closed brackets and just powered on, and because otherwise it just derails the momentum. Like
and if it doesn't make it in the final book, you can always put like author's notes at the end. I wanted this, I couldn't figure it out, or I was going in this direction, couldn't do it. But
so have you both always written like that, where you're just sort of doing the note stuff, or is that something that came along the more you all wrote and the longer in the process y'all done
it? I think mine came along.
Has your all's process evolved since you started out as to where it is now?
Yeah, definitely. I'm someone that kind of plans a lot, so I have lots of notes. I keep in notebooks.
You've got the board and everything behind you,
and the boards. But the board really came in handy with the series because I had to make sure characters. I didn't get things wrong, because if I got something wrong, people would tell me. But yeah, it's developed over time, and I do like trying different things. And like the book I'm currently writing, I have no plan whatsoever. I just had like an opening scene, and I was just like, okay, well, let's not write anything this time. Not give yourself a rigid structure, and just see where the characters take me. And it's been really refreshing. I don't think it's going to be a long book. It might be a novella or something, but like I've written the first, I think 6-7 chapters now, and I'm like, oh, that's good. And it's quite freeing not to have my usual, because usually I know what's happening in chapter 1 all the way through, like kind of the beginning of the chapter, the end of the chapter, and then I make up the stuff in the middle. But this one, I have no clue where it's going. And it's freeing.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm nervous to leave too many notes to myself, or to make too many notes about something that I want to write, because it for me it robs me of my desire to tell the story. Like it's maybe it sounds a little superstitious, but it's like if I write too many notes, then I feel like I'm telling the story without telling the story. And I'd really like to get into it with some nervousness, some apprehension, some disorientation about where it's all going to go, so that I feel that discovery process in the telling. Like I'll make a few notes here and there about, like even before starting, just a few beats. Here's something that will happen. I know that because I think every writer goes into it knowing at least a couple things that are going to happen. You have to have a concept and an idea to start with, a foundation, but I don't like to know too much going into it. So that's why the notes during the writing have become so valuable.
And there is something yourself too, don't you? Don't you ever? Surprise yourself? I didn't even think of that, but let's use it anyways. Let's try it. So
100%. I get a lot of joy out of. I mean, it's a joyful expression for me to tell a story, and part of that joy is the process of discovery, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, where it's going to go, being surprised. And I think as a writer, you get surprised by things that won't surprise a reader because you don't know every single detail that's going to happen. You know, I'm writing something right now and had some characters hop on a train. Didn't know that was going to happen. Where are they going? I don't know. We'll find out tonight.
I could see how like the over note taking could like also stifle your creativity. Like you have so much planned out, like there's no room for any creative input at that point.
Yeah. You know, but I've listened to some interviews with writers who do outlining and stuff that I've always wanted to try it. Yeah, Josh is saying lo-fi enough. Yeah, it feels like it's done if the outline is done. That's what I feel like. The story is told, even if it's in an outline form, that kind of robs the surprise. But I can't, I'm trying to remember who it was that I was listening to a few weeks ago talking about an outline, and I'd like to try it someday with the story. It seems like if you're writing a mystery, you'd have to.
Right.
Yeah.
I think with so with my Western, because like every kind of book has its own like kind of session. So like this book I was writing, I had lots of stuff going on, family stuff and things going on in my private life. So I was writing on a typewriter, but I was only writing every Friday when normally I would write kind of during the week, like every day, bit of writing. And I found that my outlining for that was quite in depth. Like I would write, like I'd spend the week where I'd normally be typing, just writing notes in my book. But then like where I'd normally have like say a couple of lines for a chapter, I'd have like 2 pages full of kind of, I've actually written it out by hand, and then I would type it up, but expand on certain bits and stuff like that. And that really helped kind of keep like that momentum going and myself in the story, because I was only spending like one day out of 7 like in that world with this book. But yeah, like I don't think I would ever write like a book longhand. That just looks like hell to me. But but typing got close.
So somebody does that, right? Who does that? We talked to somebody.
I don't know. I know Edward Lorne has written something longhand before. I know.
It wasn't Max, was it? Somebody told us they write something.
Mitch Seaborn, isn't it?
Is it Mitch?
Yeah,
Mitch probably does. Yeah, that sounds like something.
Joe Hill wrote Strange Weather all longhand, and the Fireman.
I feel like Max Booth was starting. Oh crap! What's his book about the dead bodies? He was writing that longhand because he was on the movie set for his other movie.
Maggot Screaming.
Maggot
Screaming. Yes, I think he started that one longhand, if I remember correctly, while he was on the set for We Need to Do Something.
Yeah.
You know, longhand was the only way that I wrote for years.
Really?
Until I broke my hand, and then I couldn't hold a pen for that long anymore. But I used to love it.
Click.
It's a tactile thing, you know. Yeah, it's really it's strange because you, at least for me, the sentences tended to be more precise because you're actually you have to think about it in the process. So then I would transcribe everything written by hand, and that would be like the second draft. Yeah, I kind of miss it, but
longhand was the only way I used to write too before computers were invented. But I'm older than all of you, so go ahead.
Then you have a chisel and stone too.
Yeah. The typewriter came, I was like, "Holy cow!" You know, the printing press.
Roll that down the hill.
Yeah.
In the chat, he's saying Ramsey Campbell writes all his first drafts longhand.
Does he really? That's cool.
Ramsey Campbell's written a lot of books.
Writer's Camp.
Impressive.
Yeah.
What's next for you two? After that, I know we kind of showed Tyler's.
Let's kind of goes along with Paul's question earlier. How many manuscripts are you guys sitting on? How many books do you have unpublished?
I mean, obviously Tyler's got 2. We need to call Clash about.
Yeah.
Ross is going to write 3 or 4 tonight.
I've got 3 I need to call Earthling about.
Yeah.
So currently I have Harvesting the Nightmare Fields.
By the way, that is a magnificent title. I love that title.
Oh, thank you very much. Then I have A Few Vials More, which is my Western, which I think is incredible. And then I just started a book, a few days ago called Metamorphosis, So yeah, I've got 2 that are complete, but I just need to go back and like edit. And then this new one that's kind of about 16,000 words, I think, a minute. So yeah, that's it. And then I don't think there's anything else out there. There could be, who knows?
He writes so much he forgets what he writes.
Yeah, I think that's it. And then I've got like in my notebook kind of 3 other projects that might start. But this year I kind of set myself a target of writing like 2 or 3 books, and because I already had like there was Pocketbook and this place, it kind of gave me a year to just kind of not worry about kind of trying to get a book published. I could just let them breathe for a bit and just work and write. And it's been really, well, for me, it's been a relief just to have that time to just sit and write what I want to write and see what happens. And yeah, so currently 3.
What about you, Tyler? Do you have at least 2 unpublished you talk about?
Yeah, I've got two done now, and then I've got a bunch that'll never see the light of day.
All those old tomes you talked about, you got like 6 or 7 of them, I think you said.
Yeah, those will never. But the fun part is that I can mine certain things from them, and so some of them have been broken apart and repurposed in various ways. Not like taking bits and pieces out of the actual books, but details, storylines, things like that. Yeah. Oh, and then that's it, unpublished. But then December, Heavy Oceans.
Okay. This one's coming out.
Yeah,
December.
there it is. Heavy Oceans. We pitched that as like a cross between, or The Mist meets Nope.
Oh.
But on the ocean. So if that sounds like your jam, check it out. It's a intense, brutal, balls to the wall nightmare
with a helping side of grief, probably, right?
You might be surprised. Yeah, because remember that's the first one that I wrote after that whole thing
after the cycle.
It's kind of the beginning of a new era,
romance era.
A whole new Tyler.
It's not space erotica. It's deep sea space erotica.
It's a deep sea orgy. Okay, so final pitch for both of your books here, Ross. What's the one we're gonna get with?
What's
I Died Too, but they haven't, except for a long title. What else are they going to get?
those Eric LaRocca titles, man.
They're going to get a conversation they're going to get a book that's about possession horror, but they're also going to get a book that doesn't pull any punches, a book that is about the love of a father and the hope that he can change. And I think lots of people will see themselves in the characters, but will also see the people that are in the world in some of these characters. And I just hope that people can see the heart that the book was written with, and it's in a message.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hold the book up again, Ross. You still have it with you? I Died Too, but they haven't buried me yet. Clash Books.
Pre-order now.
On Tuesday, the 24th.
On Tuesday, comes on Tuesday, and there are also a couple of Thunderstorm copies still available.
A few, probably like 4 now.
Yeah.
Well,
like what, a half hour ago we're down to 20, so they're probably done.
I'll shamelessly
Jay ordered at least 10.
Yeah. He's put them all up on eBay too, triple the price.
Guys, don't tell them. So I'm making rent this month.
And I'll shamelessly self-plug on Tuesday, the day Ross's book comes out. You can check out my 31 Days of Horror series, and Ross is reading the prologue to the book. You can check that out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Tyler, what about you?
With that sigh, you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I had to deal with Brad again. That's the only way I can get on the show. Tyler, what about you? What's your elevator pitch for Midas?
My elevator pitch? Oh, geez. I don't have to do that anymore. Now the book's out.
Were you going for a job here?
Yeah, it's an epic horror novel about a family in the Old West fighting against death. So it's got adventure, it's got horror, it's got grief. I don't know. I'm so bad at the elevator pitches.
It's got some like fairy tale, like Brothers Grimm aspects to it too. Some almost not like fantasy, like full bore, but like the dark kind of fantasy.
Yeah,
with stuff going on.
Yeah.
Just get it.
Just buy the book. Just get it.
There was only 500. There's probably like 17 left now. Get it while you can.
Yeah, I don't. There's not many left. So, but yeah, you can still order it from Earthling Publications. That's the only place you can get it. So check it out.
It's grief.
Grief.
It's good grief.
Charlie Brown.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, good grief is better than bad. That's right. Well, guys,
wait, let me try that again. Let me try that again.
Okay, do it again.
It's okay.
No, you can't have another.
No, never mind. Never mind.
No,
we're not cutting it out. We're not
fine.
editing.
It's fine. Go to the Earthling website and you can read the description, and that's my elevator pitch.
There you go.
Like your
description that you wrote. So
like your screenplay is your book.
Right.
Here's
yeah, exactly.
All right, both of you, thanks so much for hanging out and joining us and agreeing to come back. Ross, you're a couple more times and you'll get the jacket.
Oh yes.
Tyler, we need you more on here.
No, this will be my last time.
Yeah, we forgot. Told you, Brad. Told you.
Never again.
Yeah.
We'll go to message him blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's already ghosted us. That's why. He wanted to come back if it wasn't for Ross this time. So he was like,
"This is an AI version of me. I'm not even here."
It's a hologram.
Dopes. Definitely. All right, that's it. Everyone in the chat, thanks so much. You've been. It's your pleasure to see us on a Sunday afternoon. We know it.
Jay, why you gotta ruin this like that?
Well, no, because we got a different crowd. It's a Sunday afternoon crowd as opposed to a Friday night crowd.
True.
Just don't get used to it. Sunday.
We only make these special preparations for guys like Tyler and Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
We have to for Ross. He's like in the future. So
yeah. Tomorrow's looking good.
Truly, I want to take just 1 second again to thank you guys so much for taking the time to host Ross and I, for giving us the opportunity to talk about our books, to hang out and chat, everything that we've been talking about. It's been an absolute privilege, and thank you for everyone who showed up on a Sunday to hang out with us. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
We
I
appreciate
echo
you guys
all of that as well.
Yep. All right. Until then, enjoy. Glad you guys got to see us.
Enjoy.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. See ya.
Tyler, Ross, we appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.
Love you,
Thank you.
I know you do.